On today's Man Machine Alert, those of you who are not familiar with Man Machine Alerts, these are when we bring you some really interesting and current archaeological discoveries. And today's archaeological discovery comes from Saqqara, Egypt, where they discovered in a tomb a pot that had a block of cheese that was 2,600 years old. Okay. So we're going to talk about really old age cheese on this Manna Machine review. And this is the cheese we're going to be talking about here. I've got demonstrations here. This is a block of halloumi cheese. Okay? This is the sort of cheese that they found in this tomb at Saqqara. So
Yes, it is still made today.
It is still made today.
That is not 2,600-year-old cheese.
That's not 2,600-year-old cheese. It's the same style of cheese. Okay? Now, what's interesting about this cheese is if you go to Egypt today, you still get this. You know, if you go have breakfast in Egypt, you'll get this raw cheese, but it also can be fried, and we're going to have a taste test at the end of this. Okay? So I've got my producer here on the other end of the mic, Kiara, and we're going to talk about this discovery because this is actually pretty interesting. For many reasons, this is really interesting.
Kind of smelly, too.
Yeah, apparently it smelled quite ripe. Now, from what I understand, this was found in a sealed vessel in a tomb at Saqqara. The vessels were taken to, say, the Egyptian Museum and just put in storage.
Oh, so they didn't discover it was actually the cheese on site.
Exactly.
Ah.
So it sat in a storage room for a few hundred years.
Oh.
Yes.
They left that out of the article.
So it lingered for a while. It lingered for a while in a museum.
So the cheese didn't smell bad enough yet.
Yeah, it needed a little more aging. Needed a few more centuries to ripen. Now, what's interesting about this is this cheese dates to the late period. So it's essentially in that period of the 6th to 7th century BC.
Okay.
Now, this is not the oldest evidence of cheese making we have from Egypt. Cheese making, the earliest evidence we have for cheese making dates back to 3200 BC.
Okay.
But what's significant about this is it's the first whole block of cheese that we have discovered. It was sealed in a pot. And what's even more fascinating than all of that is they got probably some poor grad student to taste it.
That's the part that really got me.
Now, looking at the news article, which, came off of the ancientorigins.net, let's cite our source here. The student who's the unidentified person, we're assuming it's a student, because usually if you want someone to taste something and you don't want to do it yourself, you get a grad student to do it. Any dirty work, shoveling sand, sifting stuff you don't want to do, all the gut work, you get a grad student to do it. Okay? So I'm going to assume a grad student did this.
Can I read how they describe the smell?
Sure, go ahead.
You might imagine smelling wet socks and dirty feet. And they got the guy to taste it.
the person who tasted it said that it had an extremely acidic bite.
Yes.
Now, if you've had just regular halloumi cheese, which seems to be the style of cheese involved here, it is very acidic. It does have a very sharp bite to it. And we're actually going to do a taste test today.
And it should be noted, Dave has had this in Egypt.
Yeah, I've had this in Egypt.
This will be my first time, so you are getting my honest first time opinion. It may not be incredibly articulate. It may just be reaction noises to very acidic cheese. So,
now, it's commonly served raw for breakfast, but it can also be fried. Fried and barbecued as such.
and I have 2 cubes, one of each right here.
Yeah, and we've done that. So we've got here a cube to taste and a fried section. So we're going to have a taste test of both. Okay? And we will give you our honest response. Now, I have to admit, finding halloumi cheese in Vancouver, Canada was tricky. It was very, very tricky. I went to a half dozen grocery stores looking for this stuff. Very few stores carry this. Very few stores carry it.
He did go to organic food stores, Whole Food stores.
Yeah, Whole Foods didn't carry it. Okay, so that's the archaeological context. We've got a 2,600-year-old cheese that has continued to become basically a cheese-making tradition.
But you haven't told them what kind of cheese it is.
I did say halloumi.
That's nice for people who've been to Egypt. And what kind of cheese is it? Is it a goat's milk cheese? Is it a cow's cheese?
It's a cow's milk cheese. It's a cow's milk cheese. Okay. So it is a cow's milk cheese. It is usually done with the cheapest milk available.
Yeah. But the point is it can also be made out of a mixture of cow, goat, sheep's milk. It's basically whatever is...
Yeah, whatever's available and whatever's cheap. That's generally what it's made of. It's a hard cheese, not a soft cheese, even though it's sometimes advertised as a soft cheese. It's actually a hard cheese because it has a high melting point. Most soft cheeses have a very low melting point. So even though it's sometimes advertised as soft cheese, it's really not. It's a hard cheese. Most of the moisture is out of it. It has a very high fat content.
Yeah, reading the article, it describes it as rubbery.
Yeah.
So I'm not actually looking forward to this.
Well, here's the thing about cheese making too. Is a lot of cheeses are very, very good that are rubbery. Mozzarella, exceptionally rubbery.
True.
Now, for my audience who is not aware, I did do a lot of cheese making. Okay? I mean, I'm a cheese maker. So I know my cheeses fairly well. Cheddar, one of the rubberest cheeses on the planet. That's the whole point of the cheddaring process, is to make it more rubbery.
I'll give you that one.
Okay. So, just because it's rubbery doesn't mean it's bad.
No, the 26 actually on the dig site, I think, well, you said not the dig site, it aged a couple, 100 years?
Yeah, after they recovered from Saqqara, it sat in a museum for a few hundred years, yeah.
So it would have been really awful at the dig site, but they figured we'll make it a little worse.
I don't think it really changed it. I mean, look, this is not the first food that's ever been recovered from a tomb that people have tasted. I mean, we look at, for example, the Tomb of
Honey.
King. Yeah, honey. Honey's the big example, from the Tomb of King Tut.
Yeah, when we've discussed that before, you've said it actually, instead, I automatically assumed it crystallized.
Yeah, and that's not what happened.
That's what honey does in your shelf.
Yeah. The normal process of, say, honey is, you've got this liquid honey and it's an unstable liquid. It will crystallize if you just leave it in your shelf. But in the case of the honey found in the Tuma King Tut, it had actually liquefied. It had actually become more watery than you would find normally, which is very strange. Very strange. But 3,200 years of aging does affect the structure of food.
And you had said it actually had affected the clay
Yes.
in the vessel, that there was actually in the bottom of the liquid, there was a clay sediment mixed in with it.
Yes, it did. The clay vessel had actually, the inside of the clay vessel had mixed with the honey such that you had a clay sediment at the bottom of the honey in this jar of honey that they found in King 2. Now, again, they got some poor sap to taste it.
Yeah, I was about to say, so for those of us, I know there's several people who have told us they're interested in going into archaeology, and various people are, just starting college, high school students who haven't even started college yet, but a few people who have their masters and are working towards a PhD. You might be asked to do this. So, how safe is it to be the testing goat?
Well, while I'm not a food safety expert, generally personally, I think this is safe. Now, here's the thing. They did discover brucellosis in this cheese, which is a very, very serious disease found in cattle. Generally, when cattle are found with either brucellosis or tuberculosis, they're put down because it becomes a safety hazard for human beings.
We know that because of the various scientific testing. But the ancient Egyptians also would have known it just by recognizing disease. They may not have been able to put the labels, they may not have, identified it the same way, but we can assume they'd know if their cows were sick or healthy.
Well, we do have evidence that animals that suffered plague were put down and were buried. And we have that evidence from Varus, that very, very young animals that were not consumed, that were not eaten. They were not eaten, they were just killed and buried. That's probably a sign of agricultural plague. Like brucellosis, like tuberculosis, those sorts of really, really serious diseases. Anthrax is another one. Okay. So we do know that ancient people were aware that animals could contract plague-like diseases, had to be put down as a result.
And you had said earlier when we discussed this, it was probably safe for the assumed grad student to eat this because the disease would have died off.
Yeah, the bacteria that caused the contagion would have been long dead. Now, there are some spores that do last a very, very long time. Brucellosis is not one of them.
Yeah, the article said they found traces of.
Yeah, they found traces of the DNA.
Not active.
Yeah, they're not. This is not the active bacteria. So it would have been safe for the grad student to have tasted this.
But still, don't eat the science projects that live in your refrigerator.
Yeah, don't eat the science projects that live in your refrigerator. So anyway, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to do a taste test. Now, I have some idea what to expect here. My producer doesn't. We will see. Now we're gonna taste the raw first. Hey, here we go.
Little white cube.
White cube.
Actually, not bad.
Believe it or not, this tastes better than stuff I had in Egypt.
I don't. They did describe it as rubbery.
It's very rubbery.
I don't know if the mic picked it up. It was squeaking on my teeth as I was chewing it.
Yeah, it's very rubbery. It's salty.
But it's
Incredibly salty.
It tastes like highly salted butter.
Yeah. Yeah, highly salted, but yeah, it does have that buttery taste.
Yeah.
This is better than the stuff I had in Egypt.
It's not unpleasant. I'm surprised. I'm actually shocked. Of course, it's not 2,600 years old, but you know.
The halloumi that I had in Egypt was really sharp. Really sharp, really acidic. This is not.
No, it's
This is actually surprisingly pleasant. Just salty. Probably
Yeah.
the biggest thing about it is salty.
It's like more like eating if butter solidified with without freezing and getting cold.
Yeah, this is unexpected.
Yeah, it's
Very, very different than the stuff I had in Egypt.
it's like rubbery popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
You know when you put a ton of butter and salt on popcorn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has that salt and salt and butter taste like you have
Yeah.
on popcorn.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean that's really surprising. Okay. Wow.
Okay, that wasn't as horrible as I expected.
That was
it to
interesting.
be.
That was actually not acidic. The stuff I had in Egypt was really acidic, really sort of nasty, to be honest. Now the grilled stuff. Let's taste that. Oh my gosh, that's good. I'm liking that.
It's still squeaking on my teeth.
Sure.
But yeah, that's pleasant.
Oh, that's very good. Mm. Mm.
Hey, people, we may have a new favorite cheese. Well, not favorite, but a new snack cheese.
That is actually really tasty fried. Really tasty fried. For those who don't know, what we did was we just a frying pan with olive oil, which is how they would have fried it back then. So they would have had olive oil. We just fried it on all sides with olive oil until it developed sort of a brown skin on all sides. It can be grilled. It can, as I said, be fried, grilled. But yeah, the frying really adds to this. It adds a difference in texture and taste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not bad. I was expecting this really sharp, really acid, really unpleasant. And it's actually very mellow.
Yeah, very mellow.
Very mild, very mellow, very salty.
Yeah, it still doesn't get rid of the salt aspect of this, but
But if it's made mostly out of, you do get the idea of butter. Thinking about the fact that this is, like a cow's milk.
yeah,
Cow's milk and salt.
yeah,
It tastes like a heavily salted butter.
yeah.
And a very, very rubbery consistency, but
Yeah, very rubbery consistency.
you could
but-
get used to it.
Oh yeah, you could easily get used to this. This is not bad. This is actually pretty good.
This is surprising.
Very surprising, actually.
Yeah.
Given my experiences in Egypt. Now, I understand. In Egypt, I never got it fried. Even though apparently it is fried in Egypt, I was never served it fried in Egypt. I was served it plain as sort of a side to breakfast.
Like a cube of it, like we're eating.
Well, they'd give me a block of it. Half a block. And it wasn't very pleasant.
Is it ever grated?
No.
Hmm.
No, you're usually just given a block of it. And I had it several times there.
I could see it on a salad, grated on a salad.
Yeah, great on the salad. This stuff is okay.
Where you want to, actually, it'd work really good in a Caesar salad,
I
where you
wonder-
want that little bit of salt.
I wonder if aging has a lot to do with it.
Well, also, this is
fresh.
fresh, and it was bought in Canada.
Yeah, this is fresh. It was bought in Canada. It had no time to go rancid or age. So I wonder if over time it would develop that more acidic profile.
So we're gonna do another update in about 7 years, right?
No, no, we're not. We're not going to put this in a clay jar, stick it in a tomb, and leave it for future archaeologists. This is as experimental as this archaeology is going to get.
But this is one of the reasons you do these
Yeah,
experiments.
this is why we do
This was a
experimental.
pleasant surprise. It's a good cheese.
Yeah, this is why we do experimental archaeology, is to discover these things experientially. Because experience is going to shape how you view these things. And experimental archaeology is an important discipline.
It also fills you up on very little because of the saltiness.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
I mean, I've had half my cube and
Yeah, I haven't finished mine either, and I'm
like
I'm
half the
fine.
fried one. Yeah.
fine.
We haven't had dinner yet, so it's like it's a if you need something quick for a snack just to take that edge off, you got an hour or two before a main meal.
Well, it's like 25% milk fat.
Hmm.
So it's very, very high in milk fat. The moisture was like, I think, 48%.
I was thinking it'd be excellent keto food.
Yeah, it would be excellent if you were on a ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
So I think we'll wrap it up here. This was really interesting. This was really interesting to do.
I generally don't like experiments because they normally don't have good endings. But yeah, this was a good experiment.
This was very interesting for a number of reasons. One, we got to explore some of the food of ancient Egypt. We got to talk about the burials at Saqqara and some of the stuff that they would have been put in a tomb, which includes cheese, of all things. You know, we know that wine is put in tombs. Honey, all sorts of different foods are put in tombs, but to know that they also did cheese in tombs is also very interesting. And then to discover that, hey, you know, the same cheese, or at least a rough approximate, is still being produced today, and that we get to try it,
Yes.
is very exciting. Very, very exciting.
It would go very well with Egyptian beer, which we have all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This would go wonderful with Egyptian beer. You know, a couple fried pieces of halloumi with Egyptian beer. Oh, that'd be absolutely wonderful. And it would be a really good taste combination too.
Yeah.
Because you have the saltiness and the crispiness of the fried halloumi alongside this sort of vinegary, lemony profile of the beer. So you would have the acid in the beer cutting through the fat of the halloumi.
Yes.
That would be a wonderful profile.
Yes.
Absolutely wonderful profile. So that's going to conclude our Manna Machine review with a food review. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's Manna Machine alert. And I hope you learned something today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible.